Welcome everybody to our open house, ReCODE virtual open house, and I'll pass it. I'm Dr. Kogan. I'll go ahead and pass it to Ajwa, who's going to lead us, and she's our key coordinator for the program and nutritionist. Ajwa, thank you so much for leading us today. You muted, dear. Please unmute yourself.
Starting over. Good morning, good afternoon, or wherever you are. Welcome to the George Washington Center for Integrative Medicine's virtual open house on reversing cognitive decline, or ReCODE as it's known. The ReCODE program was developed by Dr. Dale Bredesen, a neurologist who found a different path to help people who have cognitive decline through his experience and expertise, and came up with this ReCODE program that works to stop or reverse cognitive decline um, and Alzheimer's in general and Alzheimer's in particular. He also developed protocols to prevent cognitive decline, which is known as ReCODE, or preventing cognitive decline. His website is called apollohealthco.com, and this open house is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube later. Here with us, we have the CIM's ReCODE team, ReCODE pre-code team, as well as a representative from Apollo Health, Jane Connolly, who will be talking to us about compliance and other issues with the protocol. So what we'll do is first have Dr. Kogan talk to us. He's the medical director of CIM and of the ReCODE program. And then we'll have each of our team members introduce themselves and tell you what it is that they do in particular as part of this program. Dr. Kogan.
Thank you, Jane, so much. Let me add myself to Spotlight. So I'm going to show a couple of slides, and with those slides, it's also going to be a little bit of a further description of the program. So the key aspect of this year is that we have now crossed 50 patients with at least 3 years of experience for each patient, and we're submitting this to a publication in peer-reviewed journal. Our data, as I'll show you in a second, is relatively similar to overall data from Apollo. So the program consists of basically understanding of drivers of the Alzheimer's, treating them in combination with core lifestyle optimization. So Apollo describes different types of subcategories of Alzheimer's: loss of hormones, vascular problem, sugar, glycotoxicity, inflammation, toxicity, and trauma. So each aspect gets addressed. Drivers are getting corrected over time. And it's essential that we are making sure that all of the program is being followed. This is actually a critical aspect, and this is why Jane is here today. And today's Apollo is all about critical aspect of making sure that every part of the program is followed, and you will understand in a second why it is. So this is one of the first papers that was actual trial that was published just a couple of years ago, and showing 25 patients with more than 80% improvement. And this was in a controlled settings. And in the real life, we're seeing about 50% improvement. And in our data at the center, we're seeing that if the patient's indeed following, there's a 73% chance of either getting better, so literally reversing Alzheimer's, not progressing, which is also quite an important aspect. And if the patients have ApoE4, those chances are higher. What we're really talking today is this 29 people in this program who were not able to basically follow the program, and we know nobody's getting better or staying the same. And unfortunately, what we're learning is that even partial not adherence to the program does not give any significant chances of success. And that's why today we're just going to concentrate. Can everybody stay muted, please? So it's essential that entire program is followed. And that's why we're going to discuss each aspect of the program, with including representation from Apollo. From my perspective, I'm quite excited that our brain training using our own special app called 40 Hertz Gamma Light and Sound has had now several publications, and we are significantly updating the app. There are a lot more tech that can be used. It costs you absolutely nothing. It's critical that the sound is done together with the light. We also feel strongly that the regular clicking sound doesn't work very well, because it doesn't really, people don't like the sound. So because of that, we have hired special music team that has created the very beautiful sound, and you can check it out on the app, or you can just find 40 Hertz Yuval Run on Spotify, Pandora, or your favorite app. And as I said, this was already published, and it seems like light alone doesn't work, or it works very weakly. So it has to be combined with the sound. In fact, sound appears to be better than the light alone, but the best is combination. Minimum 1 hour a day. And if you don't, for whatever reason, do enough of the light and sound, you can continue just listening to the sound, to the 40 Hertz music, using your favorite headset, or if you have a subwoofer. Again, all of this is explained on the app. And since this is being recorded, we'll make sure that we also provide links to the 40 Hertz training in case you just want to try it. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Ajwa and have you introduce next speaker for us.
Okay, and before I do that, I just want to, for people who may not know about the protocol, that it's 7 basic components known as the Bredesen 7. It's nutrition, a keto flex diet, which is a very low carb, low sugar diet, mostly plant-based diet, exercise, good sleep, stress management, stimulation of the brain, detox, and supplements. And to explain more about that, we will have Jane now talk about the program and compliance. Go ahead, Jane.
Good morning, everybody. So you have heard an introduction about the Bredesen protocol. The Bredesen protocol is essentially a functional medicine approach to treating cognitive decline. It's been proven to be effective since 2020, about 2019, 2020. Before that, Dr. Bredesen was doing a lot of research in the lab and began trainings, but it was only in 2020, 2022 that the clinical trials started. And our most recent clinical trials, I'm going to post a link for you to look at afterwards. But it's definitely now been proven to be effective. These good outcomes are also being achieved in clinics like George Washington Center for Integrative Medicine. And also we can produce these results on the Bredesen protocol website, which is Apollo Health. We save the stats from all of the participants that are involved, and we also have a very good rate of success. Now, the key to success with ReCODE, we've found, is to essentially mirror the support that the clinical trial participants are getting by following the protocol implementation instructions. I will also provide a link to that. So keep in mind that every clinical trial participant has a complete care team consisting of a physician, a nutritionist, and a health coach. In addition, they're collecting all of the lab data. That would be the lab values, medical history responses, and cognitive assessment scores. it's really important to generate that baseline report so that you can then optimize the lab values. Now, Dr. Bredesen has a set of lab recommendations that are different than you would get at your regular Quest or LabCorp. And those values, those ranges are what Dr. Bredesen considers optimal for cognitive function. So we're aiming for those, and in order to optimize those lab values, we have to follow the Bredesen 7, which is what Adjoa mentioned. And I just want to share my screen really quickly, if possible. And here's a graphic of the Bredesen 7. And you'll see that it has 7 pillars of the Bredesen protocol: nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, stimulation, detox, and supplements. And as a base here is mindfulness. So, okay, so I'm going to go through all of those. How do I stop sharing? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go through all of those pillars of the protocol. So when you're leading people through the Bredesen 7, you're going to be using the ReCODE report as a sort of a touchstone. It's a very good tool to help the participants with compliance, because you can refer back to the ReCODE report, and the report points back to support materials on the Bredesen on the ReCODE website. So each participant has an account in the portal, and that provides them access to lots of participant guides, town halls, and also there's a search bar, and they can search anything that they want. So I'm going to dive in here. Okay, so most importantly, the practitioners want to encourage compliance with the protocol. That is what Dr. Bredesen says is the #1 indicator of success on the protocol. So the first pillar of the protocol is nutrition. The most effective nutrition plan to support brain health is the KetoFlex 12-3 diet. As Adjoa mentioned, it's a plant-rich, nutrient-dense whole foods diet that emphasizes local and organic, seasonal, non-starchy vegetables combined with an adequate amount of protein and generous amounts of healthy fat. So this is different from a ketogenic diet that you see sometimes on the internet, where people are eating a lot of, bacon and processed meats. We're emphasizing free range, organic meats. And Dr. Bredesen has mentioned that the meat really should be seen as a condiment. You're really focusing on those vegetables that are non-starchy. Complex carbohydrates. This diet also incorporates a long fast. It's a minimum of 12 hours, and that fast should be started 3 hours before bedtime. And this approach utilizes multiple mechanisms to optimally support the brain to prevent and reverse cognitive decline. So this includes increasing energy, autophagy, reduced inflammation, improved detoxification, and metabolic and vascular health. Now, the way that we support the nutrition aspect of the protocol is through the guides. We have 3 guides that support nutrition. And that would be the nutrition guide, the macronutrient ratios guide. So the macronutrient ratio guide is really a great tool. A lot of practitioners I've noticed don't really get into macronutrients, but it's really important to determine for your participants what is the optimal amount of fat, protein, and carbohydrates. It varies greatly depending on people's metabolism and genetics. and other lifestyle factors like how much they're exercising. So that can change. So keep checking that. And a tool that's really great for that is the chronometer. We have a guide on the website, chronometer tips and tricks. So I'm going to send out something afterwards that will give you links to all of these things. Devices that participants need to be trained in to support the nutrition aspect of the protocol would be the Keto Mojo, which measures ketones and glucose. And for some people, you may want to get a continuous glucose monitor. I know for a lot of patients, when they see their values every morning, it really does help with compliance just to see that hard data and to be measuring it themselves. Sometimes there's such a gap between these tests that the doctors do and a patient's everyday life. And if they're involved and engaged in measuring their own data points, it really does bring a higher level of interest to maintaining compliance. So the second aspect of the Bredesen 7 is exercise. So exercise is important for a number of reasons. Number one, it increases cerebral blood flow and increases BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This has important cognitive support effects, such as supporting hippocampal growth. And if you are familiar with Alzheimer's, one thing you will note is that hippocampal volume is one of the first indications that it's the center of memory in your brain. So we measure the hippocampal volume in the beginning. That's ideally someone would get a volumetric MRI in the beginning of their protocol. And exercise is one of the ways that we maintain and even increase the size of the hippocampus, and this actually does happen. It's quite incredible. Exercise also improves oxygenation, sleep, reduces stress, and optimizes the BMI. Now we've got people with low BMI and also people with higher BMI, and we really want to make sure that those people with low BMI, they're balancing the exercise. So this is where the nutritionist really comes in to play. We want to make sure that they're getting enough protein so that they are able to exercise and incorporate both of those aspects of the Bredesen 7. Exercise also improves insulin sensitivity and overall brain and body physiology. We encourage participants to increase movement just in their daily lives. So by walking vigorously, you'll hear a lot of people say, well, I'm walking. They've got to walk in a way that's increasing their heart rate. So sometimes we encourage people to get some sort of device, an Apple Watch or the Whoop, I guess, or even if they're not a techie person, just to measure their heart rate. We want to make sure that they're getting the benefits of exercise and not just sort of strolling along. And they should do that every day, preferably outdoors for a minimum of 30 minutes. Sometimes people can incorporate running. That's great too. And HIIT training is also a really great form of exercise. Strength training programs, great for bone density, and that should be incorporated 3 or 4 times per week, when possible. Mind-body practices like yoga and Tai Chi are really great because they help with stress and with supporting the exercise aspect of the protocol. Exercise is one of the best ways to protect cognition. And some of the devices that can be used to support the exercise part of the protocol are Katsu bands and exercise with oxygen therapy. I'm not sure, do you guys have that available?
We don't have it at the office, but we have a system of recommending it so that patients actually, it's very expensive if you come
Yes.
to the office. So we have a system with a very low cost where you get a relatively low cost oxygen tank
Oh,
or
cool.
oxygen generator. That's only a few $100s versus paying thousands of dollars for the
Nice.
expensive equipment. So yeah, just FYI, because we have so many people on a limited income in our program, we're very aggressive at trying to save the money for patients. So go back to you.
Yes, that's true. It can be expensive to incorporate all of these things. So yeah, as much as you can encourage them to do on their own, that's great. So the next pillar of the Bredesen 7 is sleep. We want participants to adopt a sleep hygiene program, which really addresses all of the things that can disrupt sleep. We want people to be getting into that deep sleep so that they can achieve autophagy. So a good sleep hygiene program aims for getting 7 to 8 hours of quality restorative sleep every night. And that means no lights, no noise, no exposure to Wi-Fi. Sleep is just vital for memory consolidation and optimal functioning of the glymphatic system to clear cerebral toxins. So amyloid beta that can be flushed during the deep part of sleep. Sleep also promotes metabolic health and reduces inflammation and upregulates the immune system. So one thing we want to screen for is obstructive sleep apnea and other causes of reduced oxygenation. Those things are emerging as important risk factors for poor cognitive health. So we want to rule those out by checking nighttime oxygen saturation with a pulse oximeter, or sometimes you can send them for a sleep study, which can be covered by insurance. And other devices that might support this are the Apple Watch. Just in the beginning, before sending anyone anywhere, you can just get an idea of their baseline by looking at their own devices. Let's see. So the guides that would support this would be the sleep guide, and another guide, improve sleep by reducing blue light. So some other devices you might consider are Aura Ring and meditation apps like Calm or Headspace. You might also suggest a weighted blanket or a white noise machine for people who find that helps. The fourth pillar of the Bredesen 7 is stress. This is an often overlooked part of the protocol. We have found that this really contributes to a lack of compliance. Some people just get so stressed out, they just are frozen, and it feels too overwhelming. So we really want to address this chronic unresolved stress as part of the protocol. And that may mean support in terms of a therapist or a psychiatrist, but there are a lot of things that participants can do themselves. It's unavoidable. Everyone's going to experience some type of stress. So this really would be an aspect of the protocol for everyone. So we want to encourage participants to adopt a daily de-stress routine. So a stress management practice that is on a platform that we can measure. We want to encourage mindfulness, but things like meditation, brain entrainments like neural agility or Equisync, or the DNRS, dynamic neural retraining system, heart math, even prayer, Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. There are great vagal nerve exercises that people can do. And I guess we would encourage people to build up daily stress management habits. So really, really make that part of their daily routine and put it on their schedule, before or after taking their supplements and eating. It really has to be incorporated into their life. And then also ensuring that they're not overscheduling, and that they're using lists. Its organization is crucial for this patient population, because missing appointments and feeling stressed about where they have to be and when they have to be there, that can be a stressor as well. So making sure that they have a system and support for scheduling and putting lists up on their refrigerator or wherever they're going to see it, that can help support them as well. Let's see. Okay. Okay, brain stimulation. So the fifth part of the Bredesen protocol, Bredesen 7, is brain stimulation. So we want to upsize brains by encouraging the development of new neurons. This happens naturally in response to social and mental stimuli, but we can also encourage this by incorporating things like Brain HQ and the program that Dr. Kogan mentioned, 40 hertz gamma light and sound, and things like dancing, playing a musical instrument. One thing that's important to note is that creating new neurons is most effective when you're doing a repetitive movement and learning something new. So a new dance step or a new instrument rather than the instrument that they have played in the past. This can be a source of frustration, but it is a challenge that, when met, can increase engagement with the protocol. We also find that people who have a strong purpose in life and stay socially active and have built a support system with family members and neighbors, those people tend to do the best on the protocol. Okay. The next pillar of the Bredesen 7 is detox. Now, this is probably the most challenging thing to turn around. Participants who have been exposed to toxins. We want to, number one, avoid further exposure to any type of dementogens. So we've got, people coming in who, are gardening and using glyphosate. They've got mold in their house. We want to address all of those things. And it's really important to get a solid health history and ask questions about people's environment. And then do the testing. The Bredesen, the ReCODE report will indicate, based on the baseline lab panel, whether someone is dealing with toxicity. Dr. Bredesen calls that type 3. And when type 3 is indicated, then we want to do that testing. So we want to go down the list, not necessarily order everything at the same time. And this is where your financial manager could come in. We want to take clues from their health history and gradually go down the list with the most likely exposures. So we want to ensure that all of the following are as toxin-free as possible: the air that someone is breathing, the water that they drink. Sometimes people's pipes can have contaminants, the home that they live in. I mentioned the mold before, the food that people are eating. And also something that people may not think about, the toiletries and cosmetics and cleaning products. There's a great website called the Environmental Working Group, and you can look up any product that you might consider there, and they will score and tell you whether that's safe to use. So we want to particularly avoid exposure to mold, and practice good hygiene to reduce inflammation. So that would be maintaining good oral health. Oral health is a huge contributor to cognitive decline, P. gingivalis. And also we want to look at the teeth, the mouth, and the lips, noticing if someone has cold sores, asking them if they have HSV and testing for that, and then putting them on a medication for that. If they have dental amalgams, we want to encourage them to get those removed with a biological dentist, and look for signs of gum disease. There are great products to maintain the oral microbiome. Biocidin toothpaste and mouthwash. I'm sure that there are others that Dr. Kogan might indicate are helpful for people like that. And we do have ReCODE trained dentists. So if you do run into a patient who has oral issues, then you can always refer them and call the support team. The last aspect is supplementation. Supplements are supplemental. So normally, people may not need these, but these patients can be suffering from specific nutritional deficiencies. So we want to encourage them to take all the recommended supplements to maintain their cognitive health. And also note that the need for supplementation, it may seem like a lot at first, but over time, as we're retesting, we found that people don't need quite as much supplementation if they're following the protocol and really maintaining compliance. So please use the additional resources on the ReCODE portal. So the guides, the tutorials, the town halls, and the search bar. The ReCODE mobile app, our support groups, and lean on the Apollo Health support team if you guys have any questions at all. I will send out my email address, which is practitioner@ahnphealth.com. And if you have patients that need help, they can call the 800 number or contact us through the support team. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jane. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Mariana Ledinek, our hormone expert. Dr. Ledinek.
Thank you, Adjoa. Hello to everyone. So my name is Mariana Ledinek. I'm a naturopathic physician at GWCIM Center, and I have a general practice. I see lots of different types of patients, but I do have a special focus on endocrinology, so hormones and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, as well as body composition assessment and improvement. So my role in this particular ReCODE pre-code program is all things related to hormones and body composition improvement. So specifically, when we talk about hormones, and of course, this is if it's determined that you as a patient it's indicated for a hormone assessment and balancing. It's obviously not indicated maybe for every single person, but that's when I would see you. And when we talk about hormones, we're talking about all hormones, not just the sex hormones. So it's thyroid hormones and optimizing thyroid function. It's adrenal gland hormones such as DHEA and cortisol and optimizing that. And then, of course, the sex hormones, the estrogen. And when we say estrogen, I really mean estradiol, pretty much. So optimizing, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, and of course, pregnenolone as well. And for women, it's obviously we do this only in postmenopausal state, and it's pretty much estrogen, progesterone, estradiol, progesterone, DHA, and testosterone. And in men, it's just testosterone. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea. There's a lot of research and huge benefits, specifically when it comes to estradiol and its benefits in cognitive function, but it also has like three main, I guess, categories of tremendous benefit in the body and general health. So one is metabolic benefits, right? The other one is cardiovascular benefits, and that's primarily with oral estradiol, not transdermal or topical. And then the third and most important in this program is the cognitive benefits. And so I like to divide that into three sort of categories. We have the role that estradiol plays in memory and cognitive function, and in particularly, it helps with memory formation and memory retention. And then the other cognitive benefit is the neuroprotective effects of estrogen or estradiol. And this is where it reduces the risk of, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. And then the third and also really important benefit in cognitive function is mood regulation. So there's some evidence that suggests that estradiol can influence mood regulation and reduce the risk of depression, especially in women, postmenopausal experiencing hormone fluctuations. And then so I just want to talk a little bit more, just so that everyone understands that the brain is tremendously full with estrogen receptors, and particularly those parts of the brain that deteriorate with Alzheimer's disease. So they have the highest amount of estrogen receptors. And that's why it's really important, if it's indicated for you that, we optimize your estrogen levels, just because it has such a tremendous impact on brain health. And, there was I'm sure a lot of you have heard bad things about hormones at some point, and that all stems back to the way, the Women's Health Initiative, and in 2002, some of that, what they said was correct and right, but most of that was very, very wrong. And we know that nowadays because it's been reviewed and reassessed and reviewed and reassessed. And so we know how important it is in terms of, optimizing hormone balance. In almost all women are a candidate for it, and men too, but I'm just talking more about women in terms of estrogen and progesterone, with some few exceptions, of course, like if there's a personal history or a high family history of cancer, especially breast hormone-related cancers, if there's some clotting issues, right, or thrombosis or previous history of blood clots and things like that. But most women are candidates for it. So in terms of,
Thank you, Dr. Ledinak, so much. We still have several people, so sorry to cut you short.
No problem.
And Aja was gonna bring in next speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ledinak. Our next speaker will be Dr. Jonah Yeko, who is our detoxification expert. Jonah.
Thank you, Adjoa, and thank all of you for tuning in today. I'm so happy to be here. I know we want to keep plenty of time for some questions in the end, so I'll keep this pretty short. But essentially, the role that I play is in that step number or the type 4, the detoxification process, and I even more greatly specialize in biotoxin-related illnesses. So that's our mold, Lyme, any kind of viral. So mold, bacterias, and viruses can all be associated with cognitive decline and Alzheimer's and dementia. As Jane was alluding, the detoxification is the most challenging and complex piece of this puzzle. So usually, if somebody's seeing me and working with me, it's there's a lot more intensive work that needs to be done. And I usually meet with people fairly regularly to help them navigate the process. I've been doing this work for over 8 years, and I've worked both personally and professionally with Dr. Richie Shoemaker, who essentially coined the term chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is the name that is given to any of these biotoxin-related illnesses, such as mold. And, to keep it short and sweet, it's when I'm working with people, it generally is going to add some time and complexity to the recovery. But the good news is that if the cognitive decline and Alzheimer's is connected to chronic inflammatory response syndrome, we have protocols that absolutely have been shown consistently to not only, help people, get their energy back, get their brains back, get their lives back, but have been shown on, pre and post MRIs to heal and repair any damage that's been done to the brain. So, generally holistically, I look at it as like a 4-step process. It's like step one, it's like we got to make sure that people are out of exposure, because of course it's like we can't take people through a protocol if they're still being exposed to something like mold. You can detox that all day long, but if they're continuing to be exposed, the results are going to be very, very limited. Step number 2 is really all about detoxification. So once we're out of the exposure, now we're pulling all of these toxins out of the body. And then, step 3 is really about shutting down the inflammation that is therefore triggered from the ongoing exposure that we've potentially been experiencing. Then finally, step number 4 is all about healing and repairing any damaged tissues that have occurred to the body, and especially in these cases, the brain. And as I mentioned, it's like, yes, this adds a whole layer of complexity, and it definitely, a typical case of chronic inflammatory response syndrome is usually going to take anywhere from 12 to 18 months for someone to recover, just because we have that element of oftentimes having to get people out of exposure, like testing for mold, remediating for mold, moving. Again, it adds a whole layer of complexity to the ReCODE program that isn't there for people who don't have the detoxification issues. So a typical case, as I was saying, is about 12 to 18 months to go through a Shoemaker protocol and fully detoxify and get people through the entire protocol. But as I said, the good news is that it's incredibly effective. It's like when we follow this protocol for people who have the detox element that needs to be addressed, it's like, when we do it precisely, it's like we can actually get incredibly good results. But again, as Jane was saying, it's like, these are generally the more challenging people and cases to actually get turned around, because it's like you've got to remove that root cause that caused the toxicity in the beginning. You've got to be able to detoxify them, and then essentially be able to heal and repair any of the damage that's been done. So I think I'm going to keep it at that for today. So other people can dive in, and if anybody has any specific questions, feel free to just post it in the chat, or maybe we'll hopefully have a little bit of time for people to actually ask their questions live.
I do want to add one quick thing to Dr. Akers. It's because toxicity is so critical, we're establishing slightly different program for toxicity. We're going to be seeing patients on a monthly basis, because we found that it's just not possible to really address toxicity without very intense protocol. And Dr. Aker has been really great working with to set this program up. So we will be discussing this at some future open houses in much, much more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yako and Dr. Kogan. Next, we will hear from Dr. Novak, our therapist, our team therapist.
Hi, welcome everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Dr. Sally Novak. I have over 20 years of professional experience as a licensed clinical social worker, and I started out my career very early on working with older adults. But my particular interest in this program and passion for what I do here at CIM stems from my mother's diagnosis with a form of dementia about 8 years ago. And for many of you here, I'm assuming you can probably relate to the emotional and logistical roller coaster that creates. And so I was very, very excited to come in and help stand up a support network. For me, with my mother's diagnosis, finding a support network of other caregivers and care partners where I could experience knowledge sharing and emotional support was vital to making me feel like I was making the best decisions for myself and for my mother through this journey. So I run the support groups. We have 2 now. We're standing up a care partner support group that's going to be meeting monthly. But our main support group, which has been going on for a year, is just a most wonderful group of people. It's unique in that we have people who are diagnosed with MCI and Alzheimer's, and also their care partners with us. We share, not only is there the emotional roller coaster that goes along with diagnosis and management of the disease, but as you have heard over the past 40 minutes, there's a lot involved with the protocol and it can be overwhelming at times. So in this support group, which I would argue helps increase compliance with our patients who are registered with ReCODE, we share recipes, we share strategies, what happens when your keto mojo isn't working the way you want it to, or what other device you're using. We have shared, we had a recipe site at one point till it quit working. We share books, members share resources. I bring in experts from this team and also bring in experts in speech pathology or yoga therapy at a frequency to sort of help clients learn new skills. But mostly our members learn from each other and support each other. And it is just a beautiful community to be a part of. And I could go on, but what I am inviting, I'm going to invite one of my favorite people, Christina, who is just her openness and her courage have brought so much to our group. And she's willing to talk a little bit about her experience. So without further ado, Christina.
Good morning. My name is Christina Hernandez, and I've been in this group for a couple of years now. I think I just want to say that the support group that we have has been so important to everything that I don't even know exactly how to say this, but it would make the difference between compliance and non-compliance, happiness and unhappiness. We need to remember, I think, all the time that our caregivers are giving constantly, and at the same time, those of us who are receiving all of this support are almost always giving something back, needing and also giving, and needing and, getting back. My husband and I have just found that this is such an incredible group, and the way that it is done without any sense of, the caregiver is just as important, and I'm important, and my husband is part of this, and we actually still have a child at home, so we are in all the layers of family life. And I don't think that we could do this well, and I don't think we could maybe do it at all if we didn't have Dr. Kogan and all of you, and what you bring to the table for us. I mean, it's just life-changing. So I just want to say thank you. And if there's, some way that we can do more for the support group, that would be amazing. It's made the difference in my family. We just went from what are we going to do and how are we going to do all of this to we know what we're doing, what night of the week, who's going to show up, what we're going to be able to talk about, what we're going to be able to share with each other that the rest of the world doesn't get and doesn't understand. So I just want to say thank you, and let's make sure that we're continuing to do a lot of it.
Thank you
so much, Christina. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I would share one more thing. I want to share my screen just to show how amazing. I hope all of you can see this. Do I get a thumbs up, Audra?
Yes.
Okay. So this is our support group, or many members of it, and their family members at the recent walk to end Alzheimer's in DC. So just an amazing group of people supporting each other in this fight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a great team. And the newest member of our team is Kelly Schwarzbacher. Hope I got that right. Who will talk about her services that we are starting to incorporate.
Hi, thanks everybody. Excited to join. I'm going to be quick, as Dr. Kogan mentioned, because we want to make sure everybody has time to answer questions. Excited to announce a partnership between GWCIM and my company, Greenspring Financial Partners. Before I talk about the services real quick, I do just want to mention how meaningful this partnership is to me, especially in light of Jane mentioning how having a purpose in life can help reduce the risk of cognitive decline. I first met Dr. Kogan in 2018 when I learned about Dr. Bredesen's protocol, learned about ReCODE and pre-code, and promptly took my mother to see him as a trained physician under Dr. Dale Bredesen to GWCIM. I became a real student of the protocol, dove in, really committed to it 100% to help my mother. However, the protocol became even more personal when I found out that I am a carrier of the APOE4 gene, which is the gene that has the highest risk for Alzheimer's. So I am living the protocol myself. I understand how to incorporate the Bredesen 7 into my life, as well as the budgeting and organization that we're hearing is so important to really make sure that we are compliant, to really reap all of the benefits of the prevention and reversal. So Greenspring was born out of a vision of mine that combines my professional experience in financial services and my personal experience with ReCODE. So to relieve the burden of daily money management, the task associated with our personal finances so that patients can devote more time and energy to the ReCODE protocol. I was going to share my website, but in sake of time, I'll just say real quickly some of the services that we offer. So bill pay, reconciliation of financial accounts, budgeting, cash flow, tax reports, mail management, even coordination with healthcare professionals, your ReCODE team at GWCIM, medical expense management, coordination with financial and legal professionals, attorneys, CPA, financial advisor, and financial organizations, making sure you have all the documents and all the resources that you need for every area of your life. I'm going to end there so we have some time for questions. Thanks, Dr. Kogan, for inviting me.
Thank you, Kelly. So I'm going to ask the first question, and that's for Jane. Is there how soon do we have a replacement for BioSense? That's a big issue.
A replacement for
the BioSense device.
Oh, the BioSense. Okay, yeah. So this is a big question, and I know that the med team is screening some products. But we do not have a device for people who are trying to avoid that finger stick. Unfortunately, the Keto Mojo is the device that we would recommend at this point.
Okay. First question from Carol. How does Asperger's syndrome affect the likelihood of compliance? Anyone can take that one.
I think that's a hard one. I was just going to type. I think with individual kind of a compassionate approach and individualized attention, it's going to be possible and doable. Probably will require a bit of very specialized approach. Maybe Sally can add. I'm assuming this would be more in line with the
I agree with you. I think it's an individualized approach. I wouldn't say that it reduces compliance as a general rule. I think if there were specific questions, I'd be happy, Carol, to talk with you one-on-one and sort of find out concerns that you might have around that. But I think it would, there are probably some workarounds for areas of it, but I think it wouldn't diminish the chances of success.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay.
That's a great question there for Jane, I think. What are the specifics that Apple uses to monitor compliance with the protocol?
Okay, so on the ReCODE website, the ReCODE portal, we have a list of daily tasks, and that will remind participants what their next most important task is. We also have a compliance page that practitioners can access for their participants. So if you click on that, the little exclamation point next to a participant's name, you'll see the protocol requirements page, and it will give you a list of the labs, the cognitive assessments that someone needs, and whether they're doing Brain HQ and using the app. So That's really important. Great question. And we really do want to be collecting cognitive assessments for participants. It's crucial that we know that we can see the fluctuations of their cognitive function. So CNS vital signs every single month. It's not optional.
Yes, that's a great point.
This is a summary of today. It's not optional. I hope everybody heard this. We used to not enforce this because we sort of, now we know that if we don't enforce it, there's no point sticking with the program. That's basically as simple as that. So I think no option is the new just do it. Is that the former?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a great next question from Jeff. What testing and blood work is done prior to starting the program? I put the link, but I think it's kind of, Jeff, it's probably too long to answer because there's so many tests. And they are individualized in a way, right? So we do run the standard labs, but then also in addition, sometimes we need to do additional tests. For example, if there's a toxicity of some sort, sometimes we'll do a significant deeper dive into that topic.
Okay, if there are no more questions, why don't we have people do a last closing thought, particularly around compliance and what you might be able to help with. Let's start with Dr. Kogan.
I'll tell you what I do for my own compliance. I set a goal. So I'm training for a 50K cross-country race, and I'm planning on finishing not on a podium, but close to the podium for my age group. And so if I don't set myself a constant timing goals, then I won't meet them. So the goals can be very small for me. Sometimes the goal would just be cutting out 2-3 seconds out of my mile, out of my minutes per mile rate. And sometimes they're a bit bigger. Sometimes I'd say, look, by the end of this week, I want to make sure I finish this distance. That works for me, but I think everybody should have their own different way of looking at this.
Dr. Kogan, can you address the cost of the program? We have a question about that.
Right. So cost of Apollo is very transparent on the website. And then cost of our side really depends on how intense we work with patients. If you're working with us, for example, if you're working with Dr. Yekel for the toxicity and you're going to see him monthly, it's going to be a lot more expensive if you're in pre-code and you have to see us only a few times a year. So I would say the range is somewhere between probably $3,000 to $10,000 a year. And that, of course, does not include the food and some of the cost of some equipment or a dental work or sleep appliance if you have to get that. So that's a kind of a rough estimate. Of course, there's going to be outliers on both sides. And unfortunately, it's not really covered by new insurances. But heads up, I am working on getting a bundled care program with several payers in DC area. I just signed up for a special training leadership. And because GW is building aggressively a large memory program, that this is going to be a part of that work, trying to figure out, can we bundle this through the insurance? But at the moment, and maybe Jane can correct me, but I don't think anyone is able to take insurances for this just because it's considered non-covered service.
Yeah, for the most part, that's true. Although some of the labs can be, can be covered by insurance. But the thing about the functional medicine approach is it takes much longer for practitioners to really get your health history and spend that time with you to support you fully. 10 minutes isn't going to do it. So that's not covered by insurance, and unfortunately. But as we keep this data, collecting this data, we hope to be able to prove that the protocol works and make the insurance companies pay for it.
Great. So there was a question about the need for caregivers, and that is absolutely the case. It's just a lot of work. It's a difficult protocol, and you need as much help as you can get. Dr. Ledinek, last words?
Yeah, all I can say is make sure you take your hormone prescriptions exactly as prescribed and regularly so that we can maintain regular levels of hormones and get that estrogen into the brain.
Thank you. Dr. Yekel, last words?
Yeah, I guess I would just think back, having gone through some of these protocols myself that I think number one is when we're dealing with something that is like such a significant health challenge. I think it's just so vital that we make it our number one priority. It's like I think so often it's like we just try to bring these protocols in and fit them into our daily life when really like this becomes number one. Like this, like saving a brain takes precedent over, our job or whatever it is that else is going on. So it's like, prioritizing this, making this the number one value. And then I've also found, a technique of habit stacking to be incredibly useful, where it's like, I'll bring one thing in. It's, when I wake up in the morning, I'll do like this. Maybe it's like I'm starting a new supplement. And then like once you've got that habit down, you just keep stacking on top of that habit. So it's like with it, then it's like, okay, so I got the supplements down. Now I'm going to add in the light and sound therapy. And then once I've got that one down, now I'm going to add in this. So it's like we actually build on, just getting in the habit of doing things. So it's like, building habits plays a huge role in compliance. And so it's like if we just wake up every day and we've got no plan of action, it's like you will be lucky to get everything in during the day. But it's like if we can start building upon the habits, I think it really helps increase our likelihood for success.
Great, thank you. Dr. Novak?
I mean, I would just add, seek support. It's a lot. And none of us are perfect. We're just, doing our best. Having a team that supports you and cheers you on can be a really important part.
Great. And Kelly?
I would just say delegate where you can, and like Sally said, get the support that you need. Any areas of your life where you can delegate and get support so that you can make the program, the protocol, your priority.
And as a nutritionist, I would say let's make this fun. Don't feel like this is lack. The diet can have some really fun eating parts to it, and our support group folks really come up with great recipes and support each other. So that's my piece. And we want to thank you all for coming. And we will do another one soon. So stay tuned and check us out on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And yes, this, I'm posting YouTube link. It'll be there by all means if you want to subscribe too. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I think that's all the time we have today. And Jane, very special thanks to you for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
And for really pushing the envelope forward. I think we hope it's such an effective revolutionary program, and we want all of our patients to do well. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.